Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beebe Book Buzz. This is the program where we gather monthly, your librarians from the Beebe Library, and we talk about our books, our favorite books that we've read recently, share them with you in hopes that you can find your next great read. I'm Karen Stern, and I'm from the reference desk at the library, and I'm here with two other of my reference colleagues, Jeff Clapes and Beth Radcliffe. Today we have couple of action pieces and some myth, right?
History.
History to go around. I think we're going to start with detectives first.
Yeah.
So it's going to be Beth.
So the book that I really enjoyed, I loved it, is called IQ by Joe Ide. And I didn't expect to love it. I didn't expect to like it because it takes place in one of the worst neighborhoods in LA, so I expected there to be a lot of violence, and I don't like a lot of violence. But first of all, there wasn't. And then I fell in love with the characters. They're just so well written. The main character, his name is Isaiah Quantabi, and he's an African-American unlicensed private eye. And he's called IQ because his name is Isaiah Quantabi.
Oh, it's his initials. Yeah.
Right, and also he's a genius, off the chart genius. So IQ. So,
Got it.
both
Right.
those things. But even though he's a genius, he had to drop out of school because his older brother was unexpectedly killed. There's no mention of his parents, so he has to drop out in order to earn money to stay in his apartment and to get food and stuff. So he gets by mostly by using his Sherlock Holmes abilities of observation and induction. And he helps out all the people in his neighborhood in this section of LA that the LAPD pretty much ignore. But now, like for example, one of his clients can't pay, so he gives him a rooster. So now IQ has a pet rooster named Alejandro.
Oh, nice.
Running around his apartment.
Great.
It's very comforting.
So is it a really like gritty kind of story, or?
It doesn't have a lot of violence on the page. It's gritty in that this part of LA is gritty. There's a lot of drugs being done. There's a lot of violence around. But there's not violence on the page.
Okay.
And Joe Ide does a great job of showing LA and the different sections. And
Is he from there?
he is
What's
from
his...
South Central LA. This takes place in Long Beach, but he chose that because it was similar to South Central.
Right.
And so he is of the community, in the community, and I think that goes such a long way to how well he portrays all the characters in here. He gets the dialect just spot on. He's got a great ear for dialogue, for language. It's really wonderful. Did you have another question?
No. I was.
This is making me think of like Dennis Lehane for
Right.
LA.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Dennis
think
Lehane
that's-
for LA. And,
yeah.
and also, I'm wondering, is it going to be a series? Because that was kind of my
It
thought.
is. This is his first. His
Right.
fourth is coming out next year.
Oh, quick. So this is, all right.
Yeah,
I didn't
so
know anything.
I listened to it on tape and that's how I know the dialogue, besides reading it, was so good.
Right.
The fourth, what was I going to tell you that? I don't remember.
You're
but
in the
CD
first
was
one.
wonderful.
The CD was
so-
wonderful. And this is the first, and the fourth
Yes.
is about to come out.
Oh, that's what it is.
Right,
The second one I already have out. I'm going to start
Oh,
reading it
I'm
on the way
ex-
home today.
I'm excited for a series. I've been looking for a
Yeah,
series. That's
it's really great. It's wonderfully written. Like I said, the scenery is great. So the story is that he needs money now. These little jobs aren't working out enough. So he gets in touch with his frenemy, who's he's a fast-talking, hustling guy named Dodson. And so I mentioned how he uses his Sherlock Holmes abilities. Joe Ide is a real big fan of Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
So this is sort of a takeoff homage to him.
So like the two of them working together, like Holmes
so
and Watson.
yes, exactly.
Oh.
So Dodson is his Watson.
Watson.
Dotson, got it.
But Dodson is not like Watson. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a hustler and he's fast talking and
Right,
he
but he has
provides-
skills, right? I mean, he
Oh,
has skills that are necessary, probably.
Mostly, I think he's a foil to IQ. Although he does really help out, and he gets him this job.
Right.
He really provides a lot of comic.
I was going to say he's like the color
Exactly.
commentator kind of thing.
He provides a real foil to IQ's seriousness and steadfastness. So I love Dotson. I really
it sounds
do.
great.
Yeah, it's really great. So they're trying to catch a murder. Somebody is trying to murder a millionaire rap idol, right? So IQ has been charged with trying to figure this out, like who's the killer, and he figures out that somebody has hired a killer, and now the killer is trying to kill him. So there's a lot. There's a lot going on, but it holds together.
Is there a lot of I feel like there must be suspenseful action.
There
People
is.
are trying to kill each other, in the book.
Exactly.
It's not just solving a case.
No, but I don't think it's like a thriller that there's this fast action going on all the time. It's a lot of cerebral.
Okay, got it.
Of IQ figuring things out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was really wonderful.
Right. Okay, so it's like another modern take on Sherlock Holmes, which is great.
Right,
I mean, you think about the TV series with Benedict Cumberbatch
Right,
and all that kind of
exactly.
stuff. It's a thing
and
to do.
also, Easy Rawlings by Walter Mosley.
Yeah.
So that's got real similarities because it's, again, an African-American detective who's an unlicensed PI, and again, it's LA, it's the gritty of LA. But his takes place in 1940s and 1960s.
Right. So this is the modern version.
And you mentioned Lehane, it's also Connolly, Michael Connolly.
Oh, if you like Connolly,
Yeah.
This is great.
And Elmer Leonard. Although the thing that's very similar to Elmer Leonard, a lot of profanity. This book has a lot of profanity. I do have a section to read, which was hard to find because a lot of it is profanity. So,
and this is a family program.
And this is a family program. And I'm not going to be able to read it as well as the book on tape, so don't judge the book from me. So this is his IQ's he's an 8th grader, but he's in 10th grade because he's so smart. So this is the 10th grade geometry teacher addressing the class. All right, she said, inductive reasoning. Remember I said that he's good at inductive reasoning, so he'll explain it. It's what those so-called detectives on CSI, SUV, LMNOP, and all the rest of them call deductive reasoning, which is wrong, and they should know better. It's inductive reasoning, a tool you will use frequently in geometry as well as calculus and trigonometry, assuming you get that far. And that certainly won't be you, Jaquan. Stop messing with that girl's hair and pay attention. Your grades on that last test were so low, I had to write it on the bottom of my shoe. So that just gives you a feel for his humor.
Right. Sounds great.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I know.
New
I
series.
was so excited, and to find an African-American detective was just over the top. It's really great.
Yep. All good. Okay.
So I'm up.
I think you're up next. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're gonna.
So for something completely different.
Yeah, really different.
I actually this is called The Children of Jocasta by Natalie Haynes, and I actually had been wanting to read this since I heard about it last year, and then I totally forgot about it until I saw it sitting on the shelf at the library and said, oh, I was supposed to read that. So I loved it. I flew through it in just a couple of days. Anyone who liked Circe, which was such a big bestseller last year, still is.
That's
Still on the list.
Madeline Miller.
Madeline Miller.
I just want to call her Margaret.
I love anything that's a really well done retelling of ancient myths from any culture, but so many of them come from Greece and Rome that. So this is the story of Oedipus, basically, but it's another one kind of like Circe, where it's being told from a slightly different point of view. Instead of him being the focus of the story, it's Jocasta. So for those of you who don't remember, well, actually, I should preface it by saying, too, one of the things that, and she talks about this, and she has some notes about how she did the story. One of the problems with this particular myth is there are different versions, and that's true of a lot of the old myths. So there's no definitive story that she can retell. So in some ways, that's liberating because you have the ability to kind of reimagine it the way you want to and focus on the characters that you care about. So she picked Jocasta as the center of it. And so Jocasta is the one who marries Oedipus not knowing that he is her son,
Right.
because there was a prophecy, and when he was born, this prophecy was known at the time that he would grow up to kill his father, who was king. So
And marry his mother.
And marry his mother.
and marry his mother. So to avoid that, what they did is they took him away, and from Jocasta, and it starts when she's a young girl who is married off to the king as a teenager, and he was sent to Corinth, far away, to be raised by a completely different family. But of course, fate eventually brings him back, and he kills his father and marries Jocasta, and then they have 4 children.
Oh, I didn't know
Who
that.
you probably, it's not as well known a myth, but if you remember 7 against Thebes, all of this takes place in the city of Thebes, which is north of Athens,
Right.
and was a major city in the ancient period. And so 2 of her sons become co-kings, essentially. They alternate, they share the
And their
kingship
names
of the
were?
city. Yeah, you have to
Sorry.
remind me.
Putting you on the spot.
Eteocles and, yeah, look it up.
Okay.
We can do that. We're librarians.
We're
We can do
librarians.
that.
And they eventually kill each other. And
Right. You know, I
that-
do remember
God.
that, yeah.
And the one you do remember, nobody actually remembers their names. What you do remember is Antigone,
Right.
who is the sister,
Right.
who, because Jocasta's brother, who takes over the kingship, refuses to bury one of the sons. And that flies in the face of all kinds of tradition
Yeah.
with the gods and so forth. And Antigone wants her brother to be buried and goes against her uncle's wishes. And so that's
Yeah.
a kind of separate myth that you don't realize is connected to the same family.
Right, but so
Because-
those 2 myths come together
so
in this.
what she does, which I really like,
Right.
is she takes both, the story is told 60 years apart, and she alternates between Jocasta in the present, the present as
Right.
an adult, meeting Oedipus and raising her children, and the story of the children 60 years later, long after Jocasta and Oedipus are dead,
Okay.
dealing with that
The aftermath.
the aftermath of that because of the
Yeah.
curse on their house. And I just love how she weaves together the 2 stories. Just she alternates the chapters, but it's not. Some people don't like that kind of
Yeah.
multiple time shifting. But it's not distracting. It's
done well.
very methodical back and forth. And
And would you say the focus is on the characters? Is it
oh,
very
it's
much?
totally on the
it's
characters.
very
and
much a
that's
book
one of the things I
character.
like about it is anybody who does this well, and Circe also,
Yeah.
Miller does a superb job of making it feel so real.
Yeah.
Like this is a modern story, and that's why myths last, because
Right.
they resonate today in.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
The daughter, is she Oedipus's daughter too? She's not, right? Isn't she?
Antigone, you're talking about?
Yes,
Yes, she is.
that's part of the problem, is that
They have 4 children.
they have
so-
4 children. So there's the 2 boys who are sharing the kingship. They're
Yep.
the oldest, Antigone. And actually, what she does that's interesting is Mene, who is the youngest daughter,
Okay.
is the one who it's really told from her perspective.
Right.
So she's the one who never, she's not terribly important in the story, but this author has chosen to make
Yeah.
her the sort of focus. And I love the way she did it. I think she
Right.
did an excellent job. And if you like that kind of bringing old history to life,
Yeah.
she does an amazing job.
What about
I don't actually know whether she's done more. I think this is her first novel, but I'm not
Right.
positive.
What about the setting? Does she bring that alive too?
Yeah, absolutely. Thebes is not one of the better known, everybody knows Sparta and Corinth and Athens and so forth, but Thebes was a very important city-state at the time, and the descriptions of what daily life was like, and also particularly the difference between life in the palace
Yeah.
with the royal family and the servants, and life outside of the gates.
Right.
Oh, that's cool.
Upstairs, downstairs.
Upstairs,
Yeah, I
downstairs
love
kind
when
of
they
thing.
do that.
Because that was very important in
Right.
that culture.
Yeah, yeah.
They had slaves, they had, warriors, and so she does a very good job of making you feel like you understand how society worked on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, so Children of Jocasta,
Okay.
a dysfunctional family if there ever was one.
Well,
We always like reading about those.
Yeah.
what was the series we said that
The
it had?
Canon,
The Canoncade?
Cannondale, no, Cannon.
Cannon-
Anyway, it was, yeah, that was, there was a series, I think, that Margaret Atwood wrote for, which brought a bunch of these myths into the, made
yeah.
modern myths.
One of the ones was Alexander McCall Smith, too. He wrote one of them.
Wow. Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So a lot of big authors have done this.
It seems to be a thing lately. More people
and
are
right,
getting into
yeah,
it.
recently
I'm
it's
glad because
been-
I enjoy them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do, too.
Okay. And we're going to switch gears again, as we always do. We've talked a lot about. I feel like we've talked a lot about rivers recently in this program. We had. I think I did one back in November called Rivers, which was a series of 3 short stories written by a Dutch author. Leanne recently did
Once Upon a River.
Once
the-
Upon
the
a
new
River by
Setterfield. Yeah.
Setterfield, which was a couple months ago. And I have another one called The River, but this one is for a very different kind of reader from either of those first two. It's called The River because there's a lot of intense action, and it all takes place on a canoe trip down a river in northern Canada at the end of the summer. And it's because for Jack and Wynne, who are the 2 young men at the center of the story, getting to the takeout point at this small village about 2 weeks down the river becomes a matter of life and death. I mean, it's that kind of adventure story. Jack and Wynne are young. They're still in college, really. They're taking a break from college. They met at the very beginning of college. They're best friends. They share a love of the outdoors. Jack is this kind of, he's a Coloradan, he's a rancher's son, and he can wrangle cattle, and he can shoot and fish, and he's a total outdoorsman, as is Wynne, who's from Vermont. But Wynne is where Jack is kind of tough. Wynne is big, kind of huge guy, sweet. He's a bit of a poet. He's studying literature. He's also a crack outdoorsman. Both of them have trained people over the summer to, they've given courses in it, so they know what they're doing, and that's part of the fun of the story if you're into that kind of stuff. So we start with these 2 seasoned outdoorsmen who are taking this trip, wanting to enjoy themselves on the river for a month or so. But the first line in the book is they had been smelling smoke for 2 days, and it's not very far into the book before they realize, in fact, it's only a couple of pages into the book before they realize that smoke isn't from campfires. It's from a huge wildfire that, when they climb to the top of the hill, they can see is heading in this direction. And so suddenly there's that urgency.
Yeah.
And then when they stop to tell a couple of other campers about it, a couple of drunken Texans who don't pay them much heed at first, they kind of move on from those guys who they think are a little sketchy. They're paddling through the fog, and they hear these 2 voices, the voices of a woman and a man arguing, but they can't see anything because it's a really dense fog. And they worry about them too, and they think, oh, maybe we better go back and find them and warn them about the fire because they don't know. And they go back, they look to find them, and they can't find them. But the next day, a man paddles up past their campsite, and he's alone. And he comes up, and they warn him about some falls coming up, and so he pulls off and up to their campsite, muttering, and he's bleeding, and he's saying, "My wife is missing. I can't find her." And there begins the mystery. So you've got both the adventure. I would say this is like 2/3 adventure, 1/3 mystery, and then, or maybe you want to say half adventure, 1/4 mystery, and then the rest is this incredible outdoors. You get this is a great story for people who like The Martian. I know that sounds weird, but that same kind of idea of you're in this inhospitable place. Well, I mean, it's beautiful and it's wonderful.
Survival.
But it's
Yeah.
survival.
Yeah.
And you're trying, and it's about those details. You know, if you want to know something about survival, you can learn stuff from this book, right? You know, they
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
they're
yeah.
doing. And so you get a lot of the details of how they get from one thing to another. You have the impending fire. You've got the missing woman, the husband with the kind of sketchy story, you know, and all along the way you're getting these beautiful descriptions of the outdoors. There's the you know, majestic. This is northern Canada. It's
Yeah.
imagine, you know, Vermont, but even more wild, right? You know,
Yeah.
and the sights and the sounds and the textures of the woods and the night sky and the stars. There's just beautiful descriptions. And you're getting the details of the survival techniques and the details of the paddling. You know, the two of them are like, they are in complete synchronicity when they get in the boat, and they can move, and they know exactly how to move this boat.
So if you like true adventure,
Yeah.
this would be a really good
So
crossover.
Heller himself is an outdoorsman, and all of his books, if you've ever read any of his other ones, he's
Even
amazing.
the stuff like Krakauer and
Yeah,
you know.
even if
Yeah.
you like nonfiction,
Nonfiction
true
stuff.
adventure kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. This is a great book for. In fact, I'm gonna get my sons to read it. I am.
it sounds like it's striking me as one that's ripe to be made into a movie.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's what a lot of the reviewers were saying.
Yeah.
This is somebody making a movie out of this. So yeah, so these you get, and then you get the characterization, because you get these two great characters. They're best friends, but they are very different
Yeah.
people. You know, characterized by their different fly fishing styles. You know, he describes all of that. So there you go. A river runs through it, right?
Yeah.
If you like
Oh,
that
yeah,
one,
yeah.
there you go.
Right.
There's a lot about fly fishing in there. I mean, not too much. Like, I still, like, for me, The Martian was a little bit, almost too much on that level of
Yeah.
detail. And this one for me, was better than that, although sometimes still I was
Yeah.
like, but I think there are a lot of people who like that stuff, and you get the mystery and the adventure and
Yeah,
the characters
yeah.
too. So it was
Sounds
I had a couple of reservations about the characterization. I mean, I didn't think I didn't know if his dialogue was that believable, but it's kind of not the main point of this book. I didn't know that these two young men sounded like what I think young men sound like, even though they're very educated and outdoorsy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Somehow there was a little something that didn't quite ring true. I loved The Dog Stars, which was an earlier
That was
book,
his earlier
Yeah.
book, right?
by Heller, and with many of the same. That one's a sort of post-apocalypse thing.
Yeah.
Many of the same elements, because it's all outdoors, but I thought his dialogue there was spot on, whereas this one was maybe a little shakier, but still, great book.
So even though that one's apocalypse, it's still it sounds
It's
like they're
also
both survival.
they both have elements of survival. It's
Yeah.
not quite the the relentless thing that this
That
is.
was the
This
word
is,
that was coming to my mind. Is this like
there's this
Nothing
constant
letting
tension
up.
in this book about how
Yeah.
are they going to make it,
Yeah.
which will be yeah. So I would highly recommend it. It's a fast read. I was through it in a couple of days, and I'm not a particularly fast reader. So, The River by Peter Heller. Great. Who wants to do another one? Anybody?
I've got one. You've got one. You can go.
Okay. So my next book is called The End of Loneliness by Benedict Wells. And it's a novel that it's very different from actually any of these. It's a much quieter book. It follows the struggles of Jules, who's a directionless young man. He lost his beloved parents when he was only 10, and then he and his sister and his brother were shipped out to an aunt, who then ships them out to a boarding house. So, and then at boarding house, they're separated from one another.
Where's this at?
Well, it takes place in a lot of Europe. So he's a German author, and so some of it takes place in Berlin, some of it takes place in Munich, some of it takes place in France. So it takes place all over. Although I don't think the setting is that important.
The time?
Now,
Okay.
it's told retrospectively by Jules, the main character, the boy, the youngest boy, until he comes up to the present. So it's about loneliness and loneliness, right? And his older sister is involved in her own world of going with the fast crowd. The brother is involved in his studies, and he's involved in his own little world of reliving what happened, making up stories, until he meets another girl at boarding school, and they become inseparable. But then and they almost become romantic, but then high school ends and they go their separate ways, and that's all I want to tell you about the plot, because there's not really much plot.
So is it a relationship book?
It is a relationship book, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's bittersweet. It's a bit of a family saga because it follows him from his early ages until he's in his mid-50s, and the whole family, and what pulls them apart, what pulls them together, what they're like in their interior. It would fit into your category of gems under 300. And also, it does have Leanne, our RA goddess, our read-alike goddess. She loves unreliable narrators, and since he's telling his own story, he does have some unreliable stuff. What is memory? How do we remember? What do we remember? That's a lot of what this is about.
And that is where the tension lies in the
Yeah,
story?
yeah.
Right. So.
And his one of his idols, that guy had an idol. This one has John Irving. He loved John Irving, and in fact, when he comes of age, he changes his name. His name did not used to be Benedict Wells, but he changes it to after Homer Wells, the main character in Cider House Rules,
Right.
Oh,
which I found
okay.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Huh.
So and Irving is a read-alike for this. If
Okay.
you like Irving,
This
you
is
will
making
like
me
this.
think of someone like Ian McEwan also.
Yeah, I think so. It's not
Maybe
as big because it's just a little book,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think
But
so.
a lot of his are like that too.
Yes.
Very like
Inner monologues.
Inner
inners,
monologues, yeah.
exactly.
Things
Interiors.
remembered not quite right. Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Do you want to mention yours real quick?
Yeah.
We've got a few minutes.
Yeah. It's funny, this also takes place in Greece, and it's totally coincidental. It just happened to come
Sure
up on
it
my
is.
list.
It looks different though. Baby blue?
This is actually much more like your LA thriller.
Oh, okay.
And you guys probably know that I'm not a huge mystery
Yeah.
reader, but I like mysteries where there's a strong sense of place,
Yeah.
where that's important.
Does it take place on one of the Greek Isles?
No, it's Athens. And this is actually his second book. The first one was Athenian Blues. He is Greek. These are translated into English.
Right.
And the main character is a Stratos Gazis. He's a private detective, but basically he's a hitman. And so it is very gritty, kind of like the one that you were
Yeah.
describing. It's not like roller coaster thriller action, but it's there's a good amount of violence, but it's like Sopranos violence,
Right.
And it's I wouldn't say it would put off anybody who has trouble with that. But it's very gritty. It makes you feel like you don't ever want to go to Athens because the way he describes it is like there's crime everywhere and people are miserable, and Greece has had a lot of problems recently, but
So this is set in the modern day.
it's set in
troubled Greece.
Troubled Greece right
Right,
now, and
yeah.
in Athens, of course, where there's homelessness and
Right.
economic
Yeah.
troubles and so forth. But and he focuses on that just because that's the kind of story it is. But this particular one is there's a homeless magician. She's actually a teenage prodigy who is blind and does card tricks, and her father or her mentor that they used to be on the street together doing things, he's found murdered, and she approaches this guy to try and
Okay.
there's a pedophile ring, and there's like it's
Right.
all over the place. So it's
Lots of.
there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
But
Right.
if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
like that kind of really,
So it's page turning, would you say?
I would say it's definitely
yeah.
page turning.
And are the character, obviously the detective goes
There-
from one to the next
There's
book?
there's three main characters. This is only the second one, but there
Right.
are three characters who
In both books.
There's him, his girlfriend, and he works with a friend who is in the official police department.
Okay.
And they have a relationship of kind of helping each other out.
Huh.
And those three characters
Yeah.
are very well done and have carried over into the second book. So yeah, it's supposed to be a series.
Oh,
Sounds
that's
great.
great.
Yeah,
So
it's
two
fun.
series, two detective series we've
Yeah.
got for you, for those of you who are interested, and not very much time left. So I think we will end it there. This has been Beebe Book Buzz, and we will be back next month with a whole crew of people because we have
That's right.
our Beach Reads program coming up this coming month, and that's where we provide lists for you to take away with you, not from the TV show, obviously, but if you come to the library, you can pick up the list of books that we recommend on that show. So that will be June's program before we take a little break for the summer. And we hope you will join us then. Until the next time, we will see you again on Beebe Book Buzz.